Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
It's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Plo Koon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Hey, it's Leif Gamfert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldovar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Ruari Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Ruari, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have actor Dee Tails, best known for playing K-OHN in Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, Cratinus in Star Wars: The Force Awakens, a Gotham City Police Officer in Batman Begins, the Harbinger in Jekyll Hyde, Squid in Arctic, and a UKMTO Operator in Captain Phillips. How are you today, Dee?
I'm fine. How are you, Roy?
Great. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Yes, good to be here. Happy to be here.
Now, for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with your background, can you tell us how you got into acting originally?
Oh man, how did I get into it? I'll tell you what inspired me to want to become an actor was, I think when I was about 9 or 10, when I was about 9, I think there was a documentary on straight after Sesame Street, and it was the making of Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And all I could remember seeing was a bunch of people in the woods. Half of them were in costume, half of them weren't. I didn't know what they were doing, but I recognized stormtroopers. I recognized all these characters from the films that I hadn't even seen. I just recognized them from like the stickers and the cards we were collecting in the playground. And I thought, well, oh my God, that's a real thing. Yeah, I want to do that. But I didn't know what it was. And then about a year later, we moved and went to a new school. And the first play that we did was, or our class did, was Aladdin. And I played a genie. And I'd watched things, I'm a kid, man, so I don't even know what I'm doing. I'd watched things like Are You Being Served? So I decided I'm going to play this genie like he's camp. And I didn't know anything about it. So this little kid, I'm just playing it like camp genie, whatever. And it went down really well. And what amazed me the most was the fact that I could remember dialogue, And I was like, oh, wow, I can remember that stuff. So, okay, yeah, that's what I want to do. And yeah, my career has kind of been aimed in that direction ever since. And it wasn't until I kind of started doing some pantos here and there that I got to really kind of embrace a little bit of what I had seen was making of documentaries of Star Wars, where I had to wear flamboyant costumes or a cat costume and be half human, half cat or something, for Dick Whittington. And then obviously it was a bit easier for the Genie of the Lamp. But yeah, it all kind of just progressed. And it's been going cool. It's been all right.
Well, you're still doing it, so it's definitely been going cool.
Yeah, either that or there's nothing else I can do.
Well, you seem to be doing well, considering 2 Star Wars films in as many years, so you're doing well for yourself.
Yeah, that's nothing to turn your nose up at. It's and I don't take it for granted. It's just incredible. And even on the set of The Force Awakens, being behind the scenes, kind of chilling there with all the other creatures, and characters and actors and things like that. And we're just sitting there talking and chilling out, and then, I paused for a moment. I was like, hang on, this looks just like how I saw it in those documentaries. And then I didn't realize that I'd just come full circle in terms of wanting to be a part of something like that, even though I didn't know what it was, you know. And it just came at a time where I had all the training, all the know-how, all the experience to know what to do with certain creatures or how to perform in a certain suit. So it's incredible. And then obviously it's Star Wars, man. Star Wars. I wasn't, you know, Star Wars. I wasn't even going to audition for Star Wars. I just thought, you know what? It's too big a project. You know, they're telling people that you have to, with all the hundreds of other thousands of people out there. And at the end of the day, it may not have anything to do with your talent. It might just have something to do with your face. And I just thought, nah, I can't do that. As much as I love Star Wars, man, it would have been days or hours stood in that queue, and to get in that room and then be looked at and then said, okay, cool, and never get that call, you know, for something this big. It was like, no, I can do that for any other film, but Star Wars, no. No, it would have broken my heart. So it's just bizarre how things did work out in the end. So, yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't even put your face in the film because they stuck you in a costume. You do have a very nice face, though.
Yeah, people tell me that, but you know what? I think they're lying. I think they're lying because I ain't getting no work showing my face. But no, it was, you know, it's one of those things. And funny enough, what's really interesting is I could be sat on a train and there could be a mother and a child, or a father and a child sat there, and they could be wearing a Star Wars this or a Star Wars that, and they're loving Star Wars. And I'm just like, you have no idea. You have no idea that, yeah, I was in Star Wars, and I've seen people, I know people who you love who are in Star Wars. It's really surreal. It's bizarre.
Yeah, definitely. Were you a Star Wars fan before working on the film? I know you mentioned the stickers and all, but were you actually a fan yourself?
Well, that's how it started. It started with the stickers and the cards that we would get on the way to school, and you get this piece of bubble gum in the wrap with it, and you'd swap cards at school, and you'd exchange. They would tell you stories. Some of the kids would have seen the movie, so they're telling you half stories that are half true and half made up and stuff like that, and you're just believing it. And so I knew about R2-D2, I knew about C-3PO, I knew about Han Solo, Chewie, and Leia long before I even saw the movies. I even had some figures bought for me as an early birthday present. I had a big Boba Fett bought, a big C-3PO, and a huge R2-D2 bought for me when I was a kid, and I hadn't even seen the movie. It wasn't until I moved to the school where we did that play that I met a friend of mine who I just had dinner with last night. I haven't seen him in 30 years. Ricky Martinez, you know, and he had all the figures, or some of the figures, and then what we would do, we'd meet up on Saturdays and we'd go to this toy store, spend our pocket money on collecting these figures, all these ships and stuff. And then he was like, have you not even seen the movie? I said, no. He says, oh, come over, man, I've got the videos. So watching the videos, then I go home, and then I go to my local video store. So this is even before Blockbuster, man. So I'm going to my local video store, I'm saying, can I have Star Wars and Empire and Jedi, please? So I'm taking those back and I'm keeping them for a whole weekend. That's really how I got into it. But yeah, Ricky and I used to play with these. Oh my goodness, we used to play with these terrible lightsabers, man. Back in the day, we were talking about it last night. They used to have these lightsabers that were as fat and as wide. No, fatter and wider than that one. You got that flip-up one, yeah? You know that handle? They were as wide as the handle, and all it was a white plastic tube which used to fall off. And at the base of it was like this gel that you could put a red gel or a green gel or something that changed the color of it. They were terrible. But when you're kids, it's brilliant. That's the closest thing you've got to a lightsaber, you know? But yeah. And then, yeah, we kind of drifted apart. And it was only when I was on 7 that I realized, oh my gosh, you know, I need to get in touch with Ricky and let him know what's actually happening, you know. And yeah, we were in touch, and he's loving these movies that are being released and loving them that his mates in them. And I just can't believe that I'm a part of the franchise at all. It's beyond me.
Definitely, it's pretty surreal, especially now talking to one of your old friends about it.
Yeah, can you imagine? It's just like, yeah, we used to play with the toys, we used to do this.
And how were you originally hired to be a creature and droid puppeteer on The Force Awakens originally?
Oh, right. That's I got that through one of the puppeteers. There are 4 puppeteers on BB-8. There's Dave Chapman and BB-8's creators, Mummy and Daddy, which is Matt and Josh. And then there's Brian Herring, who is one of the puppeteers. And he's one of the creature performers and things like that. He's done a lot of work. He called me up. Well, we had a chat. And he kind of revealed in a very encrypted way what he was involved in, and up until that point he hadn't been getting a lot of work, so I was really happy about it, but wasn't holding out a hope or anything that I'd be included in what he was doing. So I was really happy for him, and then he'd say, look, if something comes up, we'll see what we can find you. And I was like, okay, great, but nah. This is Star Wars. I'm not going to get that, but it's a nice, kind gesture. This is what I thought. And so he comes back and he says, well, we've got these Hask kind of wolf creatures, and we're not sure what we're doing. I think we're going to double up on them, or have more of a gang of them, but we just want to have you come in and try on some of the suits. And so I came in, and there's a few other people there. Tom was there. Tom Bell was there. Nathan Plant was there. Can't remember who else was there. And so we were looking at these suits, having these fittings done and stuff like that. And then a week or so later, Brian came back to me and said, we got a problem. We've got these actors in from the Raid movies, and we're thinking about putting them in these costumes. So I think a scene originally was going to take place where they were in these costumes and they were going to do all their fighting skills and all that type of stuff, because they're brilliant guys. And so I thought, okay, if that's as close as I come to Star Wars and I have to give up that part to one of those guys, then hell yeah, I've made it. So I was like celebrating, thinking, wow, I never thought I'd get this close to Star Wars, and I'm just so appreciative that I was seen. And then another week had passed or so, and Brian said, look, we're off to Abu Dhabi. We've got some stuff to shoot over there, but expect a phone call from Katie at the office. There's possibly another creature that we might have for you. Neil wanted to find something for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And he says, how do you feel about working on your knees? And I'm like, yeah, Star Wars, I can do that, right? Because it's some kind of creature or something. And so off he went, and then I got a phone call, and then I came in, and there was no casting, and they would just start measuring me up straight away, and I saw this picture that Jake had drawn of this Obdurian little fella, and I thought, okay, cool. And so they started making the foam head for me to try on. It wasn't painted or anything like that, and it was Prashi's head originally. So I'm trying this thing. I'm thinking, okay, this is cool. And then he said, oh yeah, we got to have you come back in another couple of weeks and so on. That's how the fittings were going at that point. So you kept coming in and then going and come back and back and forth. And then the next time I went in, Tom was there. And he said, oh yeah, there's going to be 2 of you. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're going to be 2 little aliens, right? Looking very similar. And I thought, oh, great. And then one of the guys came and he says, right, we're bringing down the heads for you to try on, so you can try the heads on with the costume and everything. And they brought the head down, and I was kind of opening up my hands to receive this head, and then they put it straight in Tom's hands. Right? And I was like, oh, okay. And they said, Dee, your head is coming. Right? So I'm just like, all right, cool. So, and then it's like, they came downstairs and they brought it in. And as soon as I saw its face, I just started laughing. I just thought, that is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. And that was Luke Fisher. Luke Fisher had designed that particular one, and I think Jake had designed Prashi's. And as we were practicing, Aidan Cook was there and Paul Casey were there helping us with our movement and things. And I think we literally brought wardrobe to a standstill because they were just standing there watching, having a laugh at us. And yeah, then that was it. And then who was it? Neil said, "Okay, cool. Next week for the show and tell." And I was like, "Oh, what? There's more?" It's like, yeah. We don't know whether you're going to play the characters until JJ's seen the characters. And so we're like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, and that's how it happened. And then we had the show and tell. The snooty characters were there, who you see in Maz's Castle's bar and they're sat at the bar, and you see them when the band are playing, and they're just bobbing their heads, and just the coolest little things, man. They were just so cool. And then there were in the room there were these giant 3 mosquitoes. Then the giant dude, I think the giant guy who was sat by the entrance, I think they had an outline of him sat there on one of these big long benches. And then and you had the Husk Wolves, they were in there, and then you had us. And all Neil had said was, when I say creatures come alive, you come alive and just keep going until I say stop. You know, because JJ's going to come in, he'll put 20 producers with him or whatever, they all want to have a look around, and then when they leave, that's when you guys can break a character. And I was just thinking, hang on. All my character does is laugh, yeah? I was thinking, so Neil, so I just got to keep going? And he says, yeah, just keep going. I was like, okay, all right. And then we got the cue. I got the cue from Tom, because Tom saw JJ come in, and that was the start of everything. And I just started laughing all the way through the whole thing. And before you know it, find out JJ loves the characters and slotted us in Maz's scene. But it was absolutely incredible. It was really surreal. I'm a big fan of the art form of puppeteering anyway, and coming from a Sesame Street background or Muppets background as only as a viewer, yeah, and you know how they're doing it, but you love what they're doing. When I saw that making of, one of the first things I said was, "That's the guy who does Miss Piggy's voice," referring to Frank Oz, you know? And then I saw Jim Henson there. I'm like, that's the dude who does Kermit. And so there was this unification of Sesame Street and the Muppets, yeah, and Star Wars. That was my segue. That was my tie-in. Maybe if the Muppets hadn't been a part of Star Wars, I probably wouldn't have any association with it. I have no idea. But I remember that. And when you're in a room filled with just these talented artists that make these puppets come alive, and then you're in a room with people that have been these types of creatures for years, and this is what they do, everything makes sense. You're in Maz's cantina, and you know, painted, everything's finished. You're sitting on actual chairs. There's a fire pit, a literal fire pit right next to you. And it's just incredible. So when we were in that environment, we just kept going and stayed in character, working on our characters, but staying in character. But it was an incredible experience. And then you've got the makeup artists who touch up. So, you know, makeup aren't just touching up your face, they're touching up the mask that you're wearing. You know, and then they're shooting this like a blow dryer. They're shooting air through the mouth or down the neck so that you can stay cool. But totally on it. And then you've got the animatronics guys just sat there, and you just realize you're just part of this symbiotic kind of life form or life force in this room, and everybody's working to make these creatures believable and real and alive. And you just get taken with it. It's one of the most beautiful experiences. And that's why I think when JJ says he turns around and he looks, and it's like, of course, I'm in a Star Wars movie. You know, and Felicity, when she says, I look around and there's an alien or whatever, that's what it actually does. And I guess, you know, I think all of us are aware that that's the vibe we give off when we're on set, you know, and we realize what it is that we're a part of. And it makes the job even more valuable to you and more personal to you, because you know, you know that if it's affecting people this way on set, that when they see it in the movies, it's gonna look awesome.
Definitely, that's a really great answer.
It was a very long one.
Yeah, that too. Even better. And do you think that your time working on The Force Awakens helped you land the role of K-OHN in Rogue One?
See, that's it. K-OHN or Con, or yeah, it's K. I haven't been given the phonetic way of saying it, but the HON is supposed to sound like one. So is it Con or yeah? So yeah, but it's K1, but it's kind of amalgamation of all of that stuff. And if you broke it down, it would just be the letter K-1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, what I did in 7 impressed Neil to the point where he says, "Oh well, yeah, he obviously knows what he's doing and knows what's required." And that's all that they ask, is that you know what's required and you can deliver that. And yeah, I think my performance on that did influence them, or did influence this, and you can do that. And yeah, I've been extremely grateful for their belief and support of putting me in these things and knowing that I can deliver for them. But you see, the thing is, the reason why it's K1 or Con or Cone or whatever is because this was the first prototype to K2SO. So they built this suit. I was going to be playing this droid that goes along with the rebels. And once they finished the suit and they could take a look at the movement restrictions in this suit, it was pretty easy to kind of assume or to assert that actually, if it's an ex-Imperial droid, it might need to be a little bit more menacing, you know? And how about if we mix it with those big droids from Attack of the Clones, and as if some kind of evolution moving along with it, you know? So, you know, remember those droids, what are they, C3 droids or something like that in Attack of the Clones, where they're the big versions, not the Rogers, not those ones.
The super battle droids.
That's it. Yeah. So you can see how they kind of merged a droid-esque and put a head in there, proper head and everything. And that's where it went. And at the time, I remember saying to Gareth, because Gareth was concerned and wanted to know if the droid could actually run. But the way the legs were built, they're very much built similar to 3PO's outfit. So a protocol droid, which means that you're not going to get that much movement in there unless you change the design at the knees and put pistons or something. But yeah, but that's what I was contracted to play, that part. And even when the first day I turned up on set and they said, "Dee, there's been a slight change." And we've had to, you know, we've changed the character slightly. So, you know, we're going to be shooting something different with you today. And I was like, okay, but you still need me though, right? You know, I'm still going to be in the film, right? They're like, yeah. So I was happy, even though the part had changed. I knew that I was part of the development, because even when you watch the special features on a lot of these DVDs, you know, especially the prequel special features are amazing. They're just incredible. You know, it really does show you how they piece these movies together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, you know? Yeah. And someone's going to be tweaking the sound and putting sound in and splicing sound everywhere. And then if they don't like a character's performance in that scene, they'll just take that character out and then put in a better performance of that character, like just layer it right on top. And you're thinking, wow, you know, it's really pieced together. And for these things to be developed the way that they are, you know, going through the design process and listening to Doug Chang talk about how he's developing Obi-Wan's tiny little spaceship and whatever, you understand that you're part of this process. Yeah. Whether you're a creature that's delivering dialogue, which then gets later replaced by an alien language and subtitles, this is the world that you're in, and everything's going to be considered, and nothing is going to be left without a thought of how can we make this better, and you're a part of that. And I was just happy to get into that suit made by, was it Toby and Neil? I can't remember who did the design for it, but it was absolutely exquisite. It was a dream to wear that suit. You feel like RoboCop because you're putting this thing in, and as they're putting on half of that head, you do look like RoboCop. So it's kind of like, oh, this is awesome, man. Where's my gun? So and then you get encased into this thing, and until they put the head on, you're thinking, well, the movements are going to be similar to 3PO or whatever, but the head is a different design. He's not a protocol droid. He's an ex-tactical droid. So then it kind of dictates to you how to move in the suit, with what restricted movements you do have. Brilliant character. I only got on set for 3 days. They kept me on contract for 3 months, and they didn't have to do that because they knew they'd already changed the part. So I was just like, thank you. I was like, thank you, but I'd rather have done the part, but I couldn't complain. And it was such a brilliant experience, being in yet another Star Wars film. And then being surrounded once again by stormtroopers, tanks, locals, villagers, other aliens, and droids, and it was just really good. But that came directly from Neil, because Neil told Gareth, you're getting Dee and you're getting Nathan for the parts that they were talking about, and Nathan went on to play the bug-eyed droid, the silver one in Jeddah, and he's at Scarif. He's at the Scarif base. And when they first break into that place and they're walking, and you see this black droid stood there, yeah, that's Nathan stood there too. So, but yeah, and then I got to play at the time he was just called L1. So yeah, but that's down to 7, and that's down to Neil and the CFX team. Those guys, incredible.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I guess now we can just picture a Super Battle Droid and RoboCop if you want to picture the droid.
Hey, that's another movie, man.
Yeah, the origin story of K-OHN, a Star Wars story.
Hey, let's pitch that to Kathleen.
Yeah.
You know what I would love to see? They're doing these standalone movies, but I'd love to see one of these movies from the droid's point of view. So it's just droids and creatures, and you might have a cameo of a human being in there somewhere, or a reference. But that, I would absolutely love to see that. That's what I'd love to see.
Yeah, like the old droids and Ewoks cartoons.
No, well, maybe not quite like that.
Well, not quite like that.
yeah, maybe a modern day version.
Yeah.
Maybe a modern day version.
Yeah, of course.
It's modern as Rogue One. Let's say it's modern as Rogue One.
Yeah.
Let's not go too retro.
Yeah. In terms of working on both The Force Awakens and Rogue One, what were the biggest challenges you faced on both films respectively?
The challenges, to be honest, they're pretty much non-existent to minimal. I mean, you put everything to one side because it's Star Wars, and I think it's only, you have to be a certain kind of fan, or understand the franchise to a certain degree to know what it is that you're actually being asked to be a part of, in some very tiny way, because we're these tiny little cogs helping this massive machine keep moving, and we have to be grateful for being these tiny cogs and actually being a part of the machine. But you know, when they change dates, when they change times, if there's a long break before a take and stuff like that, none of those things bother me. You know, I'm just happy to be, I'm really happy to be there. And if it's taken ages, it just means that I get to walk around a little bit longer, you know, and explore a bit more. Rogue, I know Rogue was a tough shoot for some because you never knew when the camera was on you, you know, so you just had to trust and know in the routine that you had that you could keep doing that, depending on whether you had enough oxygen in your suit and depending on whether the suit wasn't very heavy, you know, and depending on whether you could actually see, you know. So there were certain sections where you'd have to have your business going on regardless of whether the camera was on you or not, because you just didn't know. But I knew that going in, so for me it was like I'll just carry on doing my thing, and you know, when I hear cut I'll stop, when I hear action I'll keep going again, and occasionally a cameraman would pick up on me and then say, oh, can you do that again and do that and blah blah blah. So you know that you're working, and you know that they know that you're working because they're capturing bits of you, but you just don't know what context or what it is they're going to be capturing. But that, you know, all of those things are meaningless in terms of when it comes to having something to complain about, because you've got to understand. Listen, I'm extremely grateful for actually being there. You know, I love seeing the guys behind the scenes working their droids, hanging with the people, getting into costumes, even some of the extras walking about, looking at everything, enjoying the experience, seeing stuntmen and stuntwomen rolling about and enjoying what they're doing, and you just take it all in. You don't want to blink, you don't want to sleep, you know. You know that you're only here for a limited amount of time, and before you know it, it's going to be done. So make sure you've taken in visually as much as you can so that you have enough to draw back on as far as a memory is concerned, because we ain't allowed to take pictures. You know. So I don't think there are tough things like that. Obviously you've got to learn how to work a suit. Knowing how far you can take it, knowing what the movement restrictions are going to be. Like Con, very much similar to 3PO, has a hard time with steps. So if he has a hard time with steps, he's not going to be able to run. He can skitter about a bit, like, you know how C-3PO does in Cloud City when they've just gone in and he's looking around and he goes chasing after him. You know, he can do some of that. But then you learn to work around certain things like that, and seeing where your eye line is, so you know how far close to an edge you can step, or how far away you are from a prop or anything like that. And Con was beautiful because Con, like Cratinus, the eye sockets on Cratinus, you couldn't see my eyes anyway, so you know, I could be going through the motions while I'm still looking across the room thinking, oh my God, that's Harrison Ford. Oh my God. Right. And it's the same with Con, at first I was up on the platform, but when I was up on the platform, I had a really good view of the whole marketplace. And I remember there was a worker, you know, at the top of one of the sets, there was a worker still tying something off. And I remember him looking, and I remember looking up as much as I could and then giving him a wave, and then he waved back, and you're thinking, oh, awesome, you know. And it's just a beautiful environment, and everybody's there to do the best that they can for a franchise they've grown up loving, their parents were working on, now they're working on, you can't get away from it. You can't get away from it. Occasionally, you run into people and say, "Oh no, I don't know anything about Star Wars," or "I'm not really a big fan, but this seems really interesting. It's really fun," or whatever. Occasionally, you meet people like that, and it's nice for them to actually have the experience, whether they go on to be a fan or not, you know. But it's characters like them, characters like us and others that work on film projects like this and take something away. And it just so happens that majority of people involved do have a place in their heart for Star Wars, you know. So there are plenty of days that they take stuff away.
Definitely, that's really great. Now, between the costumes for Cratinus and K-OHN, which did you find the more challenging to wear and why?
K-OHN is quite challenging. It's a beautiful suit to wear, and they made it so well. There wasn't a part of it that ached, you know. Like Cratinus, I haven't had a difficult costume yet that I didn't know how to work or couldn't be shown how to work, you know. And I think with K-OHN, with Cratinus, I was literally sat at the table and working out my movements, and then we had shoes on our knees because we were supposed to be quite little. And so in between takes and during takes, I would do variations with Cratinus where I'd put my hands behind my back, hands behind my head, and I'd lean back and make it look like I was crossing my feet at the table, and just seeing how far you can push something like that, where it's still believable. And that's all I kind of had. But with K-OHN, there was several things they had me do, about 4 different things. I started up on a platform where I just had to find some business to do and tinker about. So, you know, in that space, I know that I can turn really well. I just have to be careful of how close to the edge that I get, you know, how far I can bend down, or what it is I'm supposed to be looking at and how I'm supposed to be moving. Then they said, okay, for the next one, want you to just wander around the market, just wander around, and so I was wandering around and pretending and having these conversations with the sellers and things like that, and then walking about, telling them I needed some battery power converters or something, you know, as you do, and and that was one thing. So moving, the walking about in sand and then stopping and registering how he notices something, or how he gestures to something, you know, so it then gets expanded. And then the biggest challenge were the kids. You remember in Rogue One, there's one of the children that's standing there screaming, crying. Yeah. There was a group of them. There was a group of those little actors and actresses, and they came running up to me in one of the breaks, and they knew there was a dude in the suit, but they were staying in character and improvising, which was brilliant for me. So I just carried on improvising with them, and they were saying, you know, they were looking at this droid, it's like half the size of R2, but had triangular tread tracks on either side to pull him through the sand. And they were saying to me, "Oh, is that R2? Is that R2D2?" I said, "Oh no, that's not R2D2." And I was pretending to have a conversation with them or whatever. That was incredible, you know. If you were a kid in the playground, you know, you play like that. But to be able to interact with adults like that on a set, yeah, in costume, you know, I was half jealous that I wasn't the kid having this experience, you know. But then at the same time, I was aware that I was aiding the experience, you know, and it was such, that day and that moment was the best experience I ever had on set on Rogue One. That was it, hands down. And then because they saw that I had a rapport with the kids, they moved me over an entrance with the kids where the tank comes through. Originally to if you're facing the tank, to the left hand side of it there was a crash speeder, and that's what the kids were jumping all over and I was tinkering about with, which they had as an extra shot. So when the film came out, I didn't even know if I was going to be seen in the movie because they had changed the part. And I had no idea if they were going to get a shot of me in the movie, what I was going to be doing. And then I saw the movie, and the shot that they kept was me chatting to the kids. And I was like, no way. That is just brilliant. And the fact that they had a nod to me in the movie at all was then oh my God. So I'm being overwhelmed with the experience of seeing that, seeing the character there, then seeing what scene it is they grabbed, and then that was that. I think that character was a journey from rehearsing in the rehearsal room to then being on set and working out those movements, knowing what I could and couldn't do. Toby, I think it was Toby and Alex who were looking after me, knew that they had to help me up steps for a certain section, and they knew what notes to give me in terms of how close to an edge I could get before toppling over. So Con is the most challenging, but just an exquisite build. I was blown away when they built Stephanie's costume for episode 7, and even noticing how they were having to screw her into the suit in certain places and stuff like that. And I was thinking, because she played MEDO something, isn't it?
Yeah,
that gold droid.
ME89, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, Stephanie, if we're getting it wrong.
I should be more sorry. I interviewed her just a few months ago. I'm looking up. Yeah, ME89, so I did get it right.
Yeah, that, you look at that costume and it might go over your head, but if you've got that the visual dictionary and you can see that costume from head to toe, a beautiful costume. I know the shoes hurt her feet. I know those shoes hurt her feet, but she suffered for her art, and that costume was incredible. And then for those guys to then make a suit for me, completely different to that suit, but just as exquisite. I was chuffed. I was really chuffed. I was going to do anything to make that droid work.
Definitely. But that's such a great story to be able to take away from playing Con as well, with the kids.
Yeah.
Such a great story.
Yeah. But that's what I mean about it. It's one of those added extras that it's Star Wars, because you would have that experience on any other set, possibly, any other film. But for Star Wars, and then for them to take a scene that wasn't, as far as I was aware, was on a break. So we were staying in character during a break, and for them to use that shot, it's incredible. I don't even know what to say about it. I'm grateful. I'm thankful.
It just goes to show that Star Wars creators really will use anything, which is a good thing.
Absolutely anything, right? In episode 7, in Maz's castle, right? When they first enter, and there's that beautiful woman that sat on the creature, and she radios to the First Order and says she's seen them. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you see this droid come along, and he radios, and he says he's seen them. That droid, I'm trying to get the right story for that droid, but that droid wasn't designed for episode 7. It was a droid that they had, or it was a droid that was built, but they didn't know what they were going to do with it. Yeah. And then JJ said he liked the look of that droid. And then what you don't see is the 4 guys making this droid walk. Yeah. They made this droid. Obviously, they're in their blue pajamas, right? But they made this droid walk, push out his hip like he was Elvis, then turn his head to the mic, and then give his talk, right? And I'm like, that's amazing, And obviously, I come from that Sesame Street Muppets, and I just love it. And they did it like it was nothing. Obviously, they rehearsed it. was it Justin, Damien? I can't remember who else was on it. Was Colin on it? Steve? I can't remember. But these guys, they just brought this thing to life. And, you know, and technically that wasn't built for 7. It was built, you know, for, oh, we don't know what we're going to do with it. At some point, 7 comes along. JJ, do you like this droid? Love it. Let's put him in, you know, and yes. So, and he was kind of like a steampunk build. I don't know what he was made from or whatever, but junk parts or whatever. But yes, they will use literally anything that they can make work in these movies.
That's really cool. That really is. How would you describe the experience overall on working on both The Force Awakens and Rogue One?
How do I describe the experience? Learning. It's how do you learn in the best environment possible, and be aware that you're learning. You know, you're never aware that you're learning. I picking up notes from other performers on how you work a costume with an earpiece when you can't see. You know, and the guy's got the remote control doing your movements, telling you where to move, where to turn, and what o'clock to look at, and certain things like that. Incredible. Paul Casey, as well as playing multiple parts, you know, he takes you through it. He takes you through the ropes. He gets you going, performing with certain attitudes, certain styles of walk, or maybe you've got to walk downstairs. So how do you cope with that? You know, Paul is the go-to guy. You know, and his assist, and I guess Aidan assists him from time to time. Aidan Cook. These guys know what they're doing. You listen. When they say try, no, you try a bit like this one, or don't worry about it. You'll find it. You know, they could. You know, they are the best kind of carers, you know, the creature guys could have. And then, you know, you're learning about how much time certain things take on set, how this director works from this director, and how you need to prepare or what you need to get ready for your scene. And it's the most experience, because it's like a kid. They have their favorite school. I want to go to this particular school. Yeah, it's called the School of Disney, right? And it's a big castle. I want to go to that school. You know why they want to go to that school? Because they know they're going to have fun, right? They're going to learn, but they know they're going to have fun. And that's kind of what this thing is. It's like even for the veterans on set or whatever, you're always learning. But when you're like me, trying to take in as much as possible, so that you just don't forget anything, you know, and you're learning from either your mistakes or someone else's mistakes. But yeah, you just learn, and I'm in awe of all these departments that sculpt and make these figures that then get scanned, and then the suits then get made, and the heads then get made, and things like that. And and the amount of drawings, the amount of artwork that goes into this thing, and you only see a handful of them on the screen. I'm in complete awe of the people behind Star Wars just as much as those at the forefront of Star Wars. It's extraordinary. You know, I don't know many other franchises that I could feel that way about, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I also think that a lot of the behind-the-scenes people, and it's great that you brought them up, because they put just as much work into films as everyone else, and maybe not always get the credit they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, I was down at the Star Wars Celebration last year, and I was doing that interview with Steele Saunders on SteelWars.com, and I know that most of those guys were doing panels that day, yeah. And so after I'd done the interview, I then ran into I ran into Martin, I ran into Luke, I ran into Jake. Then I saw Maria, who looks after Chewie. I was seeing them all over the place, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we had that, we did a panel." And then I went onto YouTube and I looked at the panels, and I couldn't have been, I'm in no place to be proud of them or anything like that, but I felt really, really proud. I was like, yes, they're taking credit for their work, and it's not an easy feat to achieve the amount of work that they do, and they do it like it's nothing, and they do it because they love it, and they do it to 100%, and that's every single department putting in 100%. How many companies have you worked for in your life, man? And you're like, listen, your office is right next to that person over there. How comes you don't talk? I wanted this order done by yesterday. How comes you don't know? And these people, it's like one living entity. It's like one living entity. They just churn out this stuff, and it's the best it can be. And then here's the kicker. Neil will walk in, and then Neil will look at something, and he'll say, "Oh, have you thought about doing it like this and making it move like this and doing it?" And it just blows everyone's mind, because I don't even know what planet Neil's on, but Neil sees these things, And then it's just like, it breathes another 100% of life into these creatures, or into this thing that they're creating. And it's that collaborative effort, and it's that overseeing eye that Neil has, that he can either say yes to something or want it retweaked, or find a way of working it with the talents involved, from the animatronics to the makeup to the sculptors, wardrobe. It's it's all hands on deck, but it's the best hands you could ever hope for on deck,
Yeah, definitely. That's a really great way of looking at it. Now, you mentioned before that your favorite memory from working on Rogue One was with the kids and that ending up in the film. So I'm curious if you could also tell us what your favorite memory from The Force Awakens was from working on it.
Favorite memory. It's all tied to Cratinus, because I was hardly out of that suit, and Prashi and Cratinus were a force to be reckoned with. As far as Prashi and Cratinus were concerned, the movie was going to be called Prashi and Cratinus Episode 1. That's as far as that's what we knew. So, in keeping busy, in tweaking the language we were going to be using on set and how we were going to laugh, tweaking the way that we were going to walk, all took place over a course of several days, because 1 minute would be on set, just being placed and shown where the camera is going to be moving tomorrow, and all this type of stuff, and what they're going to be wanting us to do. That's one thing. And then in between the takes, like I said, we just kept it going. And then when we're taken offset and taken for scanning, for the toys, that still haven't been made. They haven't made the toys yet. We're waiting for those. We stayed in character for the scanning. So we're entertaining the guys that are taking those pictures while we are trying to figure things out with our characters, and then we're taken to the photo room, who were taking pictures for the books, and then he says, "You know what? This is the best thing I've seen all day. I'm going to video this at the same time." So he's doing it while he's taking pictures, and just being aware of the feeling of Star Wars you're spreading, through with all these people, because they're aliens, they're from Star Wars, and that's what you'd expect, and then what's even worse is that they're chuckling amongst each other, and they're giggling, and you can't help but be affected by that, and then it was so doing all of that with Tom was incredible. And then I think it was one of the last day when JJ was thanking everybody for our work on the film, and then I was saying to him, "No, thank you for having us in the film, having me in the film," and stuff like that. And I then said to him, "Look, I've been made aware that you bought my head." And he says, "Huh?" I said, no, I know you bought the head. And he goes, oh, yes. I said, look, how would you like a picture with the sculptor, designer of the head, and me? And he said, yeah. He said, oh, can we have it now? What, can we get it now? I said, no, I'll have to arrange it. So I went legging it, and I told Neil that JJ would like a picture with me and Luke. And he said, all right, we'll arrange it. And then the next day we were on the Attenborough stage while they were filming one of Harrison's scenes, where Kylo wasn't there, but it's at that base, just before he walks along that that bridge of doom. So we were there, and yeah, JJ held the head, Luke stood next to him, and then I stood on the other side doing the same laugh as the head, and JJ had a picture taken. I have yet to find that picture. I've got to put in a request for that picture. I keep forgetting every time I go in because I'm so excited by everything else, but I've got to remember to ask for that picture. But that was a moment. It's like when I was a kid watching E.T. or a Spielberg movie, you knew it was a Spielberg movie, and if I'd had a picture taken with Spielberg then, it would have meant exactly the same. And this is JJ is the next generation of Spielberg, Lucas, and anybody else. He's just so far ahead in the way that he thinks and sees things. It was truly an honor to have a picture taken with him, truly. But that was one of the highlights. But thanks to Prashi and Cratinus. And Luke.
Yeah, and maybe talking about it here on the podcast will help you remember to ask for the picture next time.
Yeah. I've said it a few times. I'm gonna have to put it as a reminder or something. Tie elastic band to my finger or something, Yeah,
anything to help you remember. Yes,
yeah. But now I've said it. Yeah, hopefully I can remember the next time we go in. Especially if I'm lucky enough to go in and I see Luke, I'll be like, Luke, we need to get that picture. Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And finally, Dee, do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
Nope. I've got. I thought that'd be fun. No, I've got a few things that I can't talk about. But unfortunately, but yeah, I'm just hoping that they call me up for more work on Star Wars. I don't think I should just be happy that I've been in it once. Be happy with it and and go away, be happy. But no, man, once you've had a little taste of Star Wars, it's like, oh man, I need a bit more of that. So yeah, hopefully they'll call me back for some more at some point, and yeah, we'll take it from there. But the experience, you have to imagine, I have to imagine that most of the people that listen to the podcast are fans of Star Wars, that would give anything to be an extra in Star Wars, whether it's a stormtrooper or a creature or a lightsaber wielding hero or something, and actually imagine that this is you talking right now, and how you try to express that into words. It's very, very difficult. It's a beautiful experience to have been a part of, and some of the people that I've met who did that on, like just being in the same scene as Harrison Ford, and then meeting the guys who operate R2, and meeting Chewie. I can go on with the people that I met or the creatures that I met, but the more that I say, the more mind blowing it gets, because it's just your childhood, and you're just plugging into that aspect of when you were a kid and what they meant to you and what they still mean, and you've become a part of their family now, and it's, oh my goodness.
Definitely. Well, I look forward to finding out more about what you have got coming up when you can talk about it more.
Yes, I have to leak some stuff soon.
Yeah, hopefully not get in trouble for that though.
Oh no.
Yeah, but that's all of my questions for you today, Dee. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Rory. I'll tell you what, Rory, tell me, what was your first impression when you saw episode 7, and you were then introduced to the creatures in episode 7 right from the start, and you're seeing Angkor Paat and you're seeing these creatures. How much did it blow your mind seeing all that?
It was pretty mind-blowing, that's for sure. I mean, I still think The Force Awakens probably has the best opening scene of a Star Wars film, like the first 10 minutes.
Yes.
And the creatures, the creatures
and
are really great.
And we get that scene of Kylo Ren freezing a laser blast.
Yeah, that was...
Awesome is that?
I know, that was pretty special. That was like one of those things where we hadn't really seen anything like that before, with the Force being used that way.
That's right. And the same way, and it's funny the way that he uses the Force, isn't it? Because I love it when he freezes, I was going to say Daisy, he freezes Rey when she's in the woods.
Yeah.
And just holds her there. I thought, brilliant. I loved all that.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah. So it awakened your Star Wars love.
Yeah, well, it never really went away.
I hear that.
Yeah.
It doesn't, does it? It just kind of sticks with you, and then you see something Star Wars related, and you're like, oh, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully I can talk to you again at some point on the podcast.
Yeah, sure. Just holler.
Yeah, I'll be sure to do so. It was a pleasure talking to you today, and I'll look forward to talking to you again. Take care. Bye.
You too, Rory. All the best, and may the Force be with you, my friend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Time to wrap up today's show. Make sure to check out our podcast links. Check out our website, website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP. Check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official-everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/Separatist Check out Dee Tails on Twitter, twitter.com/Dee Tails, and check out channel 1138 where we broadcast live from, www.channel1138.com. Geek set, everyone.
Types of mine, and I think I have a background as a dancer as well, and I think that helped out quite a bit as well. I used to be in the Swedish Ballet Academy when I was younger, which is obviously all about...
With that with Rogue One, but a lot of the roles that we would be casting are background artists, supporting artists, so they might not be right in the background, they might be quite key to the scene, but they will be, they could be police or bodyguard, they could be